Hey, what's up, you guys? Today we're going to talk about death anxiety. Woo! So you might be like, what is death anxiety? It correlates to feelings of worry and fear and restlessness when thinking about your impending death, because we all die one day, and that kind of freaks us out. So death anxiety can manifest into actions or beliefs in order to help us cope. Like we could turn to a religion with an afterlife so we never have to actually die. We could follow the rules so we end up in the right place or avoid the wrong place. And if you don't believe in a religion, you might try to live longer by leaving an impact on society through your work or through leaving a legacy or having a giant family. So a fun fact is that Americans and the Chinese both believe that a person can experience consciousness and even feel emotion for at least a brief period after the body physically dies, which I don't like that. It's kind of ew. And that can add to death anxiety. There's a lot of globalized contributions to death anxiety, like the act of death, how painful we think it might be if there's an afterlife or if there isn't, and what's in that afterlife. They all contribute to death anxiety. But the ratio of how much each contribution affects us is actually different cross-culturally. Anyway, terror management theory. It's when humans cope with death anxiety by finding ways to metaphysically live on beyond their death. They say that everybody does this, and it's what causes humans to be gravitated towards religion, why religion has always lasted for so long. And even if you're an atheist, you are likely to combat a fear of an ended existence by over-imagining how long the culture you belong in will last in a future without them, on average by more than a few thousand years in comparison to people who believe in an afterlife. So, a Christian person might believe the US might survive another 1,000 years after they die, but an atheist might believe maybe 3,000. So that is cross-cultural between the US and China, but there are differences that are shaped by culture. So if you think about the US and China, there's different norms that we are allowed to do and not do. We have different interests, we're raised differently, culture is different, we like different things. So how we show and express and contain our death anxiety are different compared to which culture we live in. So in the United States, it's an individualistic culture. One thing we like to do here is put grandma and grandpa into a nursing home. And it's theorized that we do that because there's old people around the house. Old people can kind of freak us out because they're kind of close to death. And you're like, dang, I don't like old people because they make me feel like, oh my god, one day I'm going to be old. So we put them in a home in the US. Is that right or correct? I don't know. But in comparison, China is a collectivist culture. So there's familial duty, you're expected to take care of your elders, so sending your grandma and grandpa to a nursing home is really not great. So the needs of others come before needs of death anxiety for yourself. Adding on to that idea, so if you're Chinese and you're old, it's likely your family's taking care of you and is in charge of your health when you go to the doctor. And it's actually custom to not be told that you're dying because they don't want you to feel death anxiety. They care a lot about your death anxiety more than maybe their own. And even doctors will join in on this. They might tell you that you have nothing to worry about, but then they'll tell your kids, Dad's not coming home. Another difference between cultures could be the intensity of death anxiety. It doesn't always have to be as high in each culture. The US has lower death anxiety than China because they have increased death awareness. So as Americans, we think about death a lot, maybe more than other cultures. We've been involved in multiple global wars and conflicts in the 20th and 21st century. There's been public assassinations, like JFK was televised in pop culture. There's been massive scholarly findings about death that have really popularized and made it less taboo to talk about death. And the media has actually increased how much they talk about violence. In comparison, in China, they don't want to talk about death. They don't think about it, or maybe they do. I don't know. Or maybe they don't want to. They think it's bad luck and they think that talking about it will bring death around. So not talking about it can make it harder to deal with the anxiety. It's harder to reach out to people. It's harder to find philosophical comfort, which leads to their increase in death anxiety. And so yeah, in conclusion, death anxiety is universal, but cultural differences change how it manifests across cultures. I left my references in the next slides, and there's a really cool book that I found in the Towson Library if you're more interested, and it's called Speaking of Death, America's New Sense of Mortality. It's free, and also there's a really cool movie called The Farewell. It's about how China won't tell you that you're dying. Anyway, if you leave me a comment, that'll be kind of cool. Yay!